Welcome to another episode of the activateCX podcast, where we demystify and clarify the direction of CX. My name is Frank Rogers. I'm your host, and I help brands grow with better CX, AI, and self-service. So today, we get into the dirt on what Five9 is doing with AI. It's a pretty cool subject. This is a two-part episode with John C DeBaca at Five9. Let's go. So everyone is running with the AI rock. It makes you relevant, and maybe rightly so. It is not how business is being done in the future. Nope, it's how it's being done today. And in fact, if you're a contact center and you're not in the AI game, perhaps you are setting a bad path and a bad outcome for your organization. Today we have John C DeBaca. He is the powerhouse director of AI and automation at Five9. That's pretty cool. He's going to give us the 411 on their intelligent virtual agent. So when you hear IVA, that's what that stands for. It's making a lot of noise in the marketplace, so we should be talking about it. Let's welcome John to the show. Hey, John, welcome.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate the time and opportunity to talk all about intelligent virtual agents.
It's a cool subject. And first of all, I just got to say, like, you have one of the coolest names in the industry, by the way. That is, it's pretty dope. And you carry a solid title. It's a heavyweight subject. And Five9 is a leading company. So well done. That's kind of the trifecta.
Well, we try our best.
So my understanding is that Five9 acquired the company that built initially the IVA that Five9 has today. You were in that company, and so you flowed into that acquisition. How was that transition?
Oh, it was fantastic. So I came from Inference Solutions. That was a company that Five9 acquired to pull forward the intelligent virtual agent into the Five9 platform approach. Was selling IVAs prior to Five9 since 2019. And let me say, I've been in this industry for over 20 years, and this was the most exciting time with the most happening when, IVAs were really impacting how CX is performed.
Right, and then you had COVID, so that probably amplified everything that you were working on.
Oh, COVID was really the proof point for the value of IVAs. If you remember, most organizations had to send their employees home, yet they still wanted to operate their business. And a lot of solutions out there, especially with older legacy platforms, couldn't support that remote, born in the cloud philosophy that Five9 has. So what we were using IVAs to do was help a lot of organizations stay in business and weather the storm through COVID.
So you use the term weather the storm, and I think of a sea of AI. It is becoming a crowded marketplace. So whenever we look at a platform out there that is touting their capability around AI, I have to ask, like, why Five9? Why does it stand out?
So that's a great question, and this is how we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. And this really is the legacy of Inference, and that is to take a platform approach. So a lot of times, and because there are so many different vendors out there, and what I'm going to describe as engines from Google and Amazon and Nuance and Lumenbox, and now you've got OpenAI with their GPT solutions. Uh, there's just too much to consolidate, and any individual trying to make that decision is going to have a challenge. Five9 takes that mystery out. If you think about our approach, it's a platform approach, and we can leverage through an abstraction layer any one of those backend engines. So even as recently as just a couple of months ago, we incorporated DeepGram into our solution set, and we were able to do that without asking the customer to retool, changing the interface. We just simply added that capability to our AI platform.
That's impressive. So it's kind of a component or services based backend. So that is, we have evolution in AI and various different services that are being made available that you have the ability to plug in that option.
Absolutely. Think about it as investment protection for anyone looking to make decisions and incorporate AI. And what we also did was we allowed customers to sort of adopt AI and IVAs in particular at their own rate. We're not asking them an all or nothing approach. They can start small and grow. They can mix and match because we've got different kinds of IVAs. Some are really targeted toward, auto attendant replacement, IVR, self-service, payments. But you can get extremely complex and use natural language. We can incorporate DeepGram and OpenAI, what people tend to think of as ChatGPT. We can incorporate voice biometrics, and we now have the ability, because of our platform approach, to be able to plug in new technologies as they come forward. So again, it's investment protection that really allows customers to adopt at their own pace.
I like that term investment protection. I think I'm going to use that as going forward. I like it a lot. Well, so when we talk about this investment protection, it sounds like Five9 has a philosophy, a methodology, a framework for addressing AI. Is that part of your differentiating value?
Absolutely. Because we are a platform, we're not stuck to any single backend engine, which
Mhm.
means the customer has the flexibility. And also, if they've already sort of taken a path down, maybe Google or Amazon or some others, they can keep that, philosophy going. But they can also try other technologies because, as you said earlier, there are so many different AI players out there today. You don't want to get painted into a corner or find out that you have very little runway as these technologies change. Five9, with our platform approach, really allows you to be able to take advantage of the best out there, and we vet them, which also makes sure that at the end of the day, you're not the guinea pig for some AI provider. We'll vet them for you vis-a-vis the studio platform, which is where IVAs live within Five9.
Interesting. And as you talk about this, it seems to me that the IVA itself, as a component of the Five9 offering, is something that works together with the contact center, the core contact center. But could you use this IVA with another contact center?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's kind of was our value proposition during COVID.
Mhm.
So I myself implemented a solution for a company. They were using an Avaya CS1K. They were a large mortgage, clearinghouse. So essentially, they had a set of customers very much like a BPO. And when COVID hit, they had a choice, right? Send 500 employees home with no real ability to support them, or incorporate IVAs with some other born in the cloud UC solutions to actually help facilitate that transfer from in office to work at home. And so we did that. And as a result, they're able to continue operating. But that connection there was not to a born in the cloud solution. It was to a very old and tried and true CS1K, which is a big iron Avaya platform.
Interesting. And shockingly, there are many platforms still sitting out there that resemble that description. There's a lot of big promises with AI. How does Five9 come in and really back that up? Because people are looking at AI as something that is going to replace some of their human resources inside the business, that's going to provide better customer experience and meet people where they are. There's a lot that's being put on the shoulders of AI. How do you come behind that and back that up as an organization?
Yeah, so we start with trying to understand where the customer is coming from. So if you think about customers, and we'll put like three big buckets, right? You've got those customers that are just trying to kick the tires, right? They've heard about AI, they don't know how it's going to fit, and we're very happy to talk to those customers because usually through that we find the second type of customer, which is a customer that's really trying to solve a problem. That
Mhm.
earlier example I gave, where the company had a choice: either we put their workers at work from home capabilities, or go out of business. That's a real problem that we can help solve, and we've solved many since then.
Mm.
And then the last kind of customer are those customers that are trying to differentiate themselves. So I use my own kids as an example, right? My kids are now in their early 30s and late 20s, but they'll sit in the same room 6 feet apart and text each other.
Mm.
So think about the challenge if you're a retailer. How do I communicate with them? Well, voice is a modality that we're all very comfortable with, but if you're not incorporating new technologies such as digital IVAs or digital channels, you're not going to get their wallet share, and you're not going to become relevant to that demographic. So with IVAs, we have the ability not only to drive the way that those individuals like to do business, which is they want to do business independent of any single modality, They want to be able to work on their own devices, and they want to work in any time window they choose, which means in the old world, we would have to staff a contact center at 2 o'clock in the morning. In the new world, use a digital IVA or a digital channel to be able to support those interactions so that those individuals can gain access to your goods and services.
Mm. Yeah, I saw initially with the IVAs that people were thinking about that as being maybe off hours type of fit, but now that's moving into the standard business hours. When you look at measurement around an IVA, there's a couple of things I look at. I mean, first of all, as you're assessing the environment, you're thinking about, how many normal calls that would go to an agent can be deflected. So that's the first thing. And then if they are deflected, how much of that can you contain within inside of the IVA so that there's actual resolution? So that's one form of measurement. Then another one it would be kind of your standard contact center. So what is the CSAT score, the MPS? What does that survey look like? Was it a good engagement for the customer? And then the third one is, how much money are you saving? Right? What are you doing inside of your organization? Are you getting better gross margin? Is that going right to the bottom line? Are you increasing sales because of it? When you're sitting down and looking at this, John, and what gets you kind of off your seat when it comes to measuring success, and where do you focus on what that measurement or metric is?
Yeah, so that's a great question because it's a multi-part answer. So let's think through kind of what our customers' top of mind is. If you think about most contact centers, right, they have tremendous turnover. They've got extreme costs when it comes to enabling a new agent, and then they have the inability to very quickly work across languages and also work across different modalities.
Mhm.
So an IVA solves all of those issues because you can scale very quickly because once you understand the workflow, you just add an IVA and you got instant scalability. So especially now this time of year, it's a holiday season. A lot of contact centers are trying to add resources. That's not easy to do, and it's been difficult for the last 2 to 3 years. You always see a lot of help wanted signs in retailers, much less contact centers. IVAs solve that issue. They
Mhm.
typically come in about 20% of the cost of a live human being. They're instantly enabled. If you've done the upfront work and built out the professional services engagements and workflows, they're multilingual out of the box, and they support multiple modalities. So you think about as a retailer, for example, or any organization that's touching customers, we're able to address their needs in the proper modality at an affordable price point, scale on demand, and do it for 20% of the cost of bringing on a live agent, and not have to worry about the 300% turnover we typically see in a lot of contact centers.
Yeah, indeed. It's really an interesting dynamic, John, because at Arroyo 360, we work a lot with the C level inside of the businesses that we work with. So we get some really interesting viewpoints on the IVA. And if I was to maybe segment it, I would say that maybe the CEO and the CFO are super excited about the dynamics of it. I mean, the financial dynamics are incredible because you just called out all the parts of running a contact center. It's not easy, and probably the most pear-shaped, wonky-kneed portion of it is just managing people. It's tough,
Yeah.
and so we talk a lot about keeping customers and getting customers, and it's the same thing. Like getting people and keeping people is a similar challenge. So if I look at all of that and what you're talking about, that CEO and CFO immediately gravitate to, wow, this is going to save us money. But then when we get to the VP of customer success or support, they view this group of people in a completely different way. Like these are their people. And so this dynamic of how we're going to maybe downsize the organization, redirect people into other parts of the organization that may have need, all of that is fights against a command and control structure, which is pretty traditional. How do you negotiate that conversation, John? Because you seem like you've been up against this for quite some time.
And I'm so glad you asked that question. So I think there's a mythology that IVAs replace people,
Mm.
and the answer is they don't. Right? What IVAs do is they replace mundane jobs that are low value, high volume, and it turns out that those are the kinds of jobs that actually impact that investment that most contact centers have made in their people. Because nobody wants to answer the same question day in and day out. It's what I describe with my customers as a soul sucking job. What we've actually seen is that when you implement IVAs and you do it appropriately, and we'll have to touch upon that in just a second, but when you deploy them appropriately, what you see is that customer interaction time with the live agent goes up. So it doesn't actually reduce the time, but they go up in terms of that interaction because they're now having more meaningful conversations. And when live agents are typically surveyed, what they want to do, and everybody wants to do, is a job where they make a difference. So being able to produce a relationship, high value, long term, engagement with an end customer is what live agents are looking for. So the hope is that if you do it right, you're going to actually improve the people that these contact center managers are managing and make their jobs more fulfilling by removing all those mundane, soul sucking tasks that an IBA is better handle.
Yeah, John, that's a super high EQ response, because there is kind of an assumption that the only job that we're doing right now is the entire job that needs to be doing. That's a weird statement, but if you were to take away those mundane tasks, could you actually get to the job that you haven't been able to get to, which might be
Right.
better account-based management, better outbound calls to just provide offers and to drive business inside the organization. There's so much that isn't being done because the capacity to do it is not there. And when you move the mundane tasks, which are sucking at that capacity, right, and you move that over into another area, you can actually maybe move the ball forward better for the organization. It's a very nuanced topic, and it requires some kind of big brain thinking. You really have to kind of get out of your own space and think about, like, what could we be doing different in the business. I think that's the disruptive nature of AI.
Yeah, and we're going to ask our customers to rethink how they do business,
Hmm.
because most of our customers are used to a paradigm that limited them at the beginning with just IVRs, and so they're trying to move the IVA experience into an IVR paradigm,
Hmm.
and that just doesn't work. You're going to run into the same challenges that you had before. You really need to think about the IVA as a virtual human being that has a set of capabilities that you can deploy to solve particular tasks. And then you look at your entire workforce, both virtual workforce and live agents, right? Human workforce, and say, okay, this person who's a human being is better at relationships, better at having conversations, better at solving problems. The IVA is better at answering mundane questions like, what's my account balance?
Hmm.
Right? I want to reset my password. Right? Not, I want to open an account. How does this impact me? Can I add, so and so to my account? Those are questions for human beings. But just getting my account balance, that doesn't really add value for a human being to provide that level of interaction with a caller.
No, I mean, when you're having really a very complex problem that you're experiencing, it's very janky. And when you get to a human being, the response that you have, just the emotional response you have inside is, thank God I got to somebody who I can speak to, because it's so nuanced. And so you're right, like having that, what do they call it, the high value agent, and really kind of grooming that person for that event is really important. So I want to kind of shift a little bit and talk about data, because data is probably the one of the big challenges that people have in terms of around running anything, whether it's their CRM or their contact center. It's having data insights for the IVA and how that's constructed. How would you compare that against the data insights that we get from a human conversation? Because we're using quality management technology, we're using um, you know uh, agent assist, where we're monitoring the conversation, we're providing things to people. in terms of assistance in the conversation, but in the conversation that is, or maybe more appropriately, the engagement that's with the IVA. And if you have full containment, there's another way to analyze that engagement. How rich is the data that comes out of the IVA from Five9 when it comes to understanding what that engagement was, understanding the impact to the customer and customer satisfaction, and then maybe how you use that to improve going forward?
Okay, that's a loaded question because we're touching multiple different, it's kind of across the journey, right? So let's talk a little bit about sort of kind of the entry, the front door.
Mhm.
So whether the front door is going to be a digital experience, right, where you start with a chatbot or SMS, or maybe interaction with an IVA, we're capturing data at that point. We've got tools, AI insights, and data analytics. Five9 just acquired a company by the name of ACS, which can actually open the aperture to look at those data sources like the CRMs and the ERPs and other sort of industry specific solutions to be able to really provide full visibility. So analytics is top of mind.
Mm.
But as that customer takes that journey, regardless of what modality they entered, we're capturing information. We're providing it to either the company, if it's in a self-service,
Mhm.
single-threaded interaction. If it's multi-threaded, we can provide that visibility into all those threads through our VCC platform. When it touches a live agent, that data is pulled forward, right? And this is where I
Mhm.
always ask our customers to think about what are they presenting to that live agent? How prepared are they making that live agent to really manage that interaction?
Mhm.
Also, if the live agent is working across different types of product lines or service lines, can we use Agent Assist to
Mhm.
give them coaching cards? We've got transcriptions, we've got summaries, we've got checklists, we've got AI insights. There's a lot of tools that we provide in our platform that allow them to take advantage of what the customer is saying. And then we have other tools like WFA or workforce automation that allows us to be able to pull in data from third parties. And then we've got a reporting tool across the top that allows us to really look beyond the contact center experience to those supporting business systems.
Do you have
So
a dashboard for the IVA in particular? So, like, typically you have a dashboard that says, I've got, 300 agents that are working, 200 of them are on calls. So many are working on this. This is what, some of the statistics real time that's going on. Do you have that for the IVA alone and your IVAs period?
yeah, we've got a dashboard. We can look at the number of IVAs in flight, right? Depending on how you design it, right? Because we have a platform called Studio that allows you to create either a single canvas or multiple canvases with different workflows. You can understand where those IVAs are sitting, very similar to what you would do with live agents and queues and what we
Mhm.
like to call campaigns. So
Okay.
you can get that level of visibility, but until you tie it all together, it's just data silos. You really need that end to end customer journey, and now more and more the agent experience as well that you pull into that.
Do you name your IVAs? So I know that for the Five9 business model, you purchase a number of seats, kind of like you would for the contact center. So I need 20 IVAs, I need 40 IVAs. To be perfectly honest, not everybody does that. I think it's brilliant for a variety of reasons, but do you name them? Is there a Dave and a Janet IVA? Is there persona IVAs? Like, what's the distinction across those IVAs, or are they conditional based upon how a call gets routed to them?
Yeah, so you could, right? I don't necessarily always recommend that you do,
Mhm.
because if you think about an IVA, in fact, let me take a roll this back just a second, because you mentioned something that is really key in how we differentiate ourselves.
Yes,
So some of the competition treats IVA as an engine where they're charging by transaction.
that's right.
And what we're really treating IVAs at Five9 is a resource, very similar to just a person. It just happens to be a virtual person, which means just like a human being, I can work on one task at a time. And once I'm complete with one task, like it may be a self-service call steering, right? Once I get you to where you need to be, then I can go work on getting some of their balance. And now I can, and then once that's complete, now I can work on maybe resetting a password. Oh, now I can work on something else. So we're not limiting them, right, to a single action. We could name them if we wanted to, but what that really begs is the idea that we can mix and match IVAs. So just like in a contact center, you have different skill sets, right? We didn't do that with an IVA. So, for example, if you looked at the call volume and you realize, especially if they're just starting out, they need IVAs that can do ASR and text to speech really well and handle certain modalities. Well, that might be what we call a standard IVA. And that's 80% of the call volume, at least today, for example, with this example customer. But this customer wants to incorporate more natural language, right? So we say 20% of the calls going forward might be natural language. So
Mhm.
rather than have 100 IVAs that do natural language, and now you've got some capabilities that are essentially uh, not a good fit for 80% of the calls, we can mix and match, which means as the customer reaches that tipping point where they're doing more and more with natural language, we essentially just swap out that resource from a virtual IVA perspective. And that's that investment protection I was talking about.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I want to go back to, again, the model that you have, because I do think it's brilliant. Because most people, when they're thinking of the contact center, it's really about how many tookus and seats do we have? And so I have 300 people. And maybe as you look at some contraction, maybe you don't have contraction like you mentioned earlier, but maybe you do have some contraction. Well, how does that get refilled? By having the fact that you purchase 25 or 30 seats of an IVA, psychologically, I believe, shows where that fill is. Like, it's very easy to consume because it's part of the context and the construct of how a contact center works today. So it's easy for people to adopt. And when it goes down to the transactional level, I think it makes it harder. So I just think that that is actually a really, really smart way to approach the market. And I think it's a key differentiator. And I think it also maybe makes it easier to buy.
Yeah, philosophically, we're trying to implant the idea in our customers that this is a resource very similar to human beings.
Hmm.
So if you're trying to buy them, minutes at a time at a rate per minute, that really negates that approach. The approach is here's a resource. They're available to you 24 hours a day, right? 7 days a week. They never get sick. They never take vacation.
Hmm.
You can very quickly scale when you need to, and they have capabilities and skills. And when you get to natural language, they all speak multiple languages. So treat it as a resource. And I advise my customers, start small, solve a problem, right? But understand that there's so much further capabilities that you can support. So then you give them a new job and then a new job and a new job. And it's very similar to an employee. You think about onboarding an employee. Right? For the first 30 days, they're just trying to find their way around the office, whether it's a brick and mortar or a virtual office. Then they start to get good at the job, right? And by 60, 90 days, they start to actually improve the job and get some efficiencies. It's no different than an IVA, right? At first, you start them off small. They're going to learn more because they're now exposed to more data, specific data that is relative to your customer environment. And then you take that, and the smarter customers are actually taking that data capture through transcriptions and logging and being able to just reincorporate back to expand those tasks that the IVA is responsible for.
John, thanks for being on the show today. We really appreciate you. Why don't you hang back in the green room? We'll talk to you in a second.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Frank.
So there you have it. Five9, the dirt on Five9 is they know what they're doing. So they've acquired technology, they brought it in, they've tied it into the rest of their solution, but they also sits out there kind of as a little nugget that you could drop in over the top of your existing contact center to bring about this IVA, this interactive virtual agent capability. One of the things I really like about it is you can think about it in terms of how many of these you need, not necessarily transactions. That's a little bit of a different measurement. It goes along pretty simply with how we address and how we approach acquiring contact center today. This is very cool stuff. I think that they have kind of an edge because of the way that they've componentized their technology and the way that they're bringing it to market with an efficacy around implementation, which is really sharp. I really like it. Folks, if you want to be successful, let's go get it. If you like what you're hearing here, hit the subscribe button. Go ahead and like this, share it with some friends. Let's go get it.